If you consider it possible, I would be very glad to see you in Russia, as is our tradition, in St. Petersburg at the end of this year, on the eve of the new year, for our informal meeting. And I have already exchanged views with some colleagues and informed them about the results of the work in Anchorage, Alaska, with the Americans regarding the settlement of the situation in Ukraine. We will have the opportunity in a very small circle to gather. I would like specifically in such a small group to inform you in more detail about the results, which we generally assess positively. And of course, we are building our subsequent work on resolving the conflict in Ukraine based on those fundamental principles that we discussed in Alaska. The Commonwealth of Independent States has established itself as an authoritative regional and integrative association. And I think the most important thing is that we have managed to preserve such a platform, not just for communication, but also to create a common market and a shared humanitarian space, to some extent preserving them. In my view, this is very important for the citizens of our states. Russia's trade turnover with the CIS countries. Just in 2024, as Kasamjalan Kemevich mentioned regarding Kazakhstan, I can say the same about Russia. Russia's trade turnover with the CIS countries increased by 7% to $112 billion. Its structure is consistently improving, which, in my opinion, is extremely important. Moreover, the structure is improving due to the growth of the segment of products with high added value. I just want to highlight this and simply, this is what you might call a medical fact. Our trade turnover is becoming more refined year after year. Our countries are building a stable and independent financial infrastructure, free from external influence. Almost all mutual settlements are now carried out in national currencies. Their share in commercial transactions between CIS participants in the first half of 2025 amounted to 96%. This does not mean that we are refusing to use other payment instruments and currencies. It simply increases our independence and sovereignty. This is an obvious thing in today's world. Of course, the doors of Eurasia are always open. My colleagues and I discuss this one way or another. In my opinion, this is beneficial. It brings economic advantages. It opens up more markets. At the very least, it creates more opportunities for cooperation. And ultimately, this is useful. This is simply useful, absolutely, for sure. Well, it's true that today's market situation has developed in a particular way, but take our relationship with Armenia, for example. How much has our trade turnover increased now? What is the trade turnover with Armenia now? This year, it's already 4 billion. How much? 4 billion. No, more. This year, yes, more. Last year it was about 9 billion. Last year it was more, and this year it will be more as well. You can come closer, obviously. Within the CIS, import substitution processes are underway, but as we now believe in Russia, and I think this is important for all of us, it's not just about replacing something, but about becoming leaders in certain areas. And not just in some areas, but not on the periphery of development, rather in key directions. And we have such opportunities, that's 100%, but we need to, not just to be independent, but to lead in certain areas. And this is possible considering our intellectual potential, which we inherited from the Soviet Union, and thank God is actively developing even today. Here, innovation, digitalization, and the comprehensive and rational use of natural resources are important. Obviously, no one disputes that, of course. An important area of joint work among the Commonwealth states is also the fight against terrorism and extremism, against corruption and so on. And we are doing everything to establish this cooperation in a whole range of areas. That is why we fully support the documents that are being adopted today. This is an action program in the anti-terrorism field, a plan of joint activities for the protection of external borders, an updated concept of military cooperation, a statement on countering transnational crime, on combating money laundering from criminal activities, and on strengthening energy security. This year, as my colleagues have already mentioned, we have widely celebrated the 80th anniversary of the victory in the Great Patriotic War. I would like to thank the leaders of the Commonwealth states who came to Moscow on May 9th. It is symbolic that on the anniversary of victory, units of the national armed forces of the CIS countries march shoulder to shoulder with Russian troops in the parade on Red Square. For this as well, I would like to express my special gratitude to you. We regularly coordinate our efforts in this important work, taking into account such events that are taking place in the external environment. In this regard, we also consider the joint statement submitted today for the Council's approval on the occasion of the 80th anniversary of the founding of the UN to be highly relevant. Colleagues have also spoken about this, and just like many of those present, we support deepening contacts between the Commonwealth and the Shanghai Cooperation Organization. This is the aim of the draft decision prepared on granting the SCO observer status with the CIS. Indeed, it would be beneficial to fully utilize the potential of cooperation between the two organizations to ensure the security and sustainable development of our countries and the entire Eurasian region. We support the fundamentally important decision being adopted today to create a new CIS Plus working format. This will make it possible to more actively involve other states and international organizations in cooperation with our organization. If you consider it possible, I would be very glad to see you in Russia, as is our tradition, in St. Petersburg at the end of this year, on the eve of the New Year, for our informal meeting. And I have already exchanged views with some colleagues and informed them about the results of the work in Anchorage, Alaska, with the Americans regarding the settlement of the situation in Ukraine. We will have the opportunity in a very small circle to gather. I would like specifically in such a small group to inform you in more detail about the results, which we generally assess positively. And of course, we are building our subsequent work on resolving the conflict in Ukraine based on those fundamental principles that we discussed in Alaska.